Mom was like, the war started. And I'm like, what you mean? Am I still sleeping? What's going on? I go to my window here, and it's a very busy street. And I see that the cars lined up. Instead of 4 lanes, you just have basically everyone is moving in one direction, which is outside of Kyiv. How do I pack to be a refugee? I don't have any comfortable clothes.
Right.
It's so
Right.
cute. It's very, very surreal. There's no way you're gonna make it alone. It's not gonna happen. As much as you think you are self-sufficient or resilient, because I used to think that. I used to think I'm good in stressful situation. I'm structured. I'm not going into panic mode. It all goes to waste in a situation like that.
There's a lot of good people in the world, and as much as you can find bad ones, there's much more good people than bad people.
Sometimes you deal with a situation, but then you reflect on it and you see that you are not okay. That even though the situation is resolved and everything is fine, your work is fine, everything is done, and to an outsider, it seems like you're all put together, but still you aren't.
All right, we are on. Hi, Mary. Thank you for joining my podcast. I know Mary through my wife. We never met in person. We never talked through camera. She was very kind to join my podcast and tell her story. So Mary lives in Ukraine. She works for a bank currently. She's 31 and single. She allowed me to say that, so I'm saying it. She also has a cool story to tell. I mean, cool, sad. I mean, all of it about, it's intense. She was working, and one day she woke up. There's a war going on, and she's forced to, not forced, but basically obligated to leave to another country, which is some sort of migration. I mean, you're migrating, even if you're conscious or not, you're migrating. So I thought her story would be worth to share, and I want to hear it. I love Ukrainians. My wife is Ukrainian. So I'm happy to have you here, Mary. I really, really appreciate you for being on my podcast. And well, I'm going to let you talk a little bit about you, share your story, how everything began, right? So you go.
All right. Well, thank you for having me. Basically, I did have some reservations about coming here because at the time I wasn't sure how compelling my story is, because comparing it to other people, and you hear a lot of stories now in Ukraine because the war is still going on, it feels a little bit basic. It doesn't have any major things going on. But for me, for my personal life, within my story, there was still a very big event. And there were some major things that I went through. So I don't know, maybe the viewers will decide whether or not this is a compelling story.
Look, let me tell you something. I'm glad you're saying that. I think people will judge the story. To me, I believe every story is a good story. Some of them are a little bit more intense, less intense. When you told me the story, I thought it was interesting, very interesting. I not every story had to be like super dramatic, or it had to be it had to be all levels. It's cool. So I think your story is cool, and don't worry about that. I think people will love your story.
Okay, awesome. Well, where do I start? So basically, the day it all started, I was here in Kyiv. I was at home currently. Well, at the time, I was working from home mostly, which is occasionally visiting the office. The day before, I think it was a tough day. Something was going on at work. I was not happy. I stayed up late just watching movies. And a little bit of context, I was, before it all broke out, the upcoming weeks, if you take them, the people, you could sort of divide them into 2 groups. One, those who believed something's going to happen. They were actively preparing. Some were exploring the issue, exploring the options to relocate maybe, either within Ukraine to a safer region in the West or going abroad. Some were just preparing, stocking on food and things like that. I was in another camp. I believe that it's not going to happen. I don't know why. I did believe that some sort of escalation would occur. I sort of had this belief that it would still stay within the limits of where it was initially in the eastern Ukraine.
Right.
So that day, the night before it happened, I stayed up. I think I was watching Netflix or something. I was really pissed about my work. I went to sleep maybe 1 or 2 a.m. So I overslept everything. I didn't hear anything. I didn't hear what started. I think my mom called me at 7 a.m. I was still sleeping, which was kind of late for me. I used to get up around 7, but because I went to bed later that night, I stayed in. So my mom called and I'm still sleepy. I'm picking up. It was like, hey, what's going on? Mom was like, the war started. And I'm like, what you mean? Am I still sleeping? What's going on? I go to my window here and it's a very busy street. And I see that the cars lined up. Instead of 4 lanes, you just have basically everyone is moving in one direction, which is outside of Kyiv. And that's, something started feeling a little bit off. So I got up, I got dressed, I went outside because first of all, I'm not kind of a very organized person who has like their fridge full. I don't plan all that sort of thing. So I think I didn't have much food actually. I didn't have any cash because here everything is cashless, aside from maybe going to the market to buy some veggies. But otherwise, it's all cashless. So I'm sort of used to it. I don't carry much cash with me. So I was cashless at the time. It's not a good state to find yourself in during a war. I think for anyone who watches, I don't know, any survival shows like Walking Dead or anything,
Yeah.
you would know that you need to be stocked on food, on maybe some, I don't know. So I went outside. It's like, I don't know what's going on. There's lots of cars. There's a huge traffic jam. I think it's just for miles and miles. It's a huge traffic jam for everyone trying to get out of Kyiv. I wanted to hit the ATM. It's all empty because it's either empty or there's a huge line because the people were lining up till very, very early in the morning. I think the places that do currency exchange, they are the same. Some people were... Those people who had some cash in local currency, they were afraid that, the inflation would hit instantly because of the situation. So they would try to go to the exchange point and exchange to dollars or euro or anything just to have some kind of security for the savings. I didn't have cash, so I didn't have that problem.
Right. Let me tell you a quick story. So I used to live in Florida, and we have hurricanes. Right? In a hurricane event, it's similar to what you're going through, except people don't shoot you or anything, right? Obviously, that wasn't the case. At least at this part of the story, but people after the hurricane, people are desperate to go get food and money and stuff. So obviously, everything is cleaned out. Like there's no food, there's no water, there's no gasoline. Also, the day before the hurricane, people just go load up the gas tank and everything. So there's nothing is available. So I understand what you're saying, but I found myself in that situation where I wasn't prepared. So it happens. I mean, nobody expects the worst. I guess some people do. I don't like to live my life in fear. So I'm never prepared for anything. I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, but it's fine.
Yeah, the funny thing is my birthday is on February 13th. And I've had my birthday party. So a few days before, some people were like, if we're going to go through with the party, what if something happens? What if something breaks out? It was like, whatever, if something happens, we don't go to a bar. It's not a big deal. But at the end, I'm very glad that we did because it was still fun at the time. And the absolute majority of people who were at that party at the time, they are abroad now, so we don't see each other that much anymore. So I'm really glad that we did have that party after all, and we didn't succumb to the fear. But yeah, back to the day. So when outside, I don't actually recall whether the stores, like grocery stores, weren't open yet, or maybe there were also lines or something like that. And I had to start my work at 9 a.m. and it was around 8 already. So I was like, okay, I can go home. Maybe I'll check the news or I'll ask people at work what they think. We were supposed to have a BCP plan or something like that. So maybe they know something. And I just started working and everyone was confused. But at the same time, I think having a job and also having, issues and tasks lined up sort of helped because you don't do that very bad thing of checking news instantly and getting into the panic and fear because you have something you need to focus on. So I'm glad I did have that. And people were equally confused. We're like, okay, so we don't know what's going on. We worked. Maybe a couple of people left because they were trying to relocate, but then majority of them stayed. And yeah, so we're just like a semi-normal working day. And then end of day, I think finally I went out and I got to the supermarket. It was not empty yet, but it was not stocked to 100%, let's just say. But still, I was able to buy something, and then I went home. And yeah, I think where I lived, this exact part of the city, the first couple of days we didn't have the air raids working, so we didn't hear them, which was a bit surreal because you sort of hear this on a news. You hear people talking about how this air raids and alarms are very scary and they happen all the time. But then here, I didn't hear them, so it was fine by me. But I think one of the most real things for me was the uncertainty and not understanding fully how the scope of it and how serious it is. Because back in my mind, just to remind you, I was in a camp that didn't believe the full invasion will break out.
Right.
And then the first day, I was like, no, but it's not going to be that bad. Maybe there'll be some kind of a deal, or something will happen. It's not like they're going to bomb everything because this is unproductive. Just merely from a strategical standpoint, it's not going to achieve anything. But still,
Right.
I think it prevented me from being rational and organizing myself, getting like my passport, my cash or anything, and getting ready to go to leave if need be.
Right.
So I was just, okay, whatever, I go to work, I do something, I try to buy some food, and I'll just try to live through it, and it will end eventually because it couldn't be that bad. I was still a bit delusional at that time.
Right.
But yeah, I think the first week was very strange. There were 48 hours. I believe we had a curfew for 48 hours during the weekend where you weren't supposed to leave your flat or house or whatever. And you were checking the news, but then there was nothing particular. There was nothing to indicate that this would either go on and get more and more serious or this would end eventually. From looking at it now, the way the government handled it, they tried not to spread more fear. And I think maybe strategically it was the right decision, but at the same time, it was a bit of a white lie to say that it was going to end soon. It's just going to be a couple of weeks, then we're just going to end them, and
Right.
that's it. Yeah.
Right. To be honest with you, when this happened, I remember Julie and I, we were driving somewhere, and then she got notification on her phone and she learned about the war, and felt a little bit unrealistic. Like, there's no way we're having a war right now, right? It's 2020. Was it 2022?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why are we having a war right now? This is weird. No, I don't know. It's just very unrealistic. So if it wasn't realistic for you, imagine for me that I'm miles away and in La La Land, right? So, and I'm thinking, no, this is not. It can't happen. Now we're, with 2025 already, this thing is stopped and intensifying and getting worse. So it's crazy. So you were already 4 days there, and then did not go anywhere. You're still at your house. You didn't leave. Nothing. You just trying to figure out what's gonna happen, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Because in my mind, I was still like, it's going to end just, a couple more days and it's going to end. And generally, I'm just not the kind of person who takes swift decisions in critical situation. I don't go, I'm not panicky. I'm not, going crazy. But whenever you need to make a swift decision, whether we go right or we go left, I'll be like, okay, I need my Excel spreadsheet. I need to make a decision. I need a chart or something. So yeah, I think that is not the best trait to have in this kind of apocalyptic situations. But yeah,
Right.
in the United States, I think I left Ukraine, I think it was 5th or 6th of March. And I arrived in Poland across the border on the 7th of March. So
How was that? Because I imagine, everybody's leaving, right? So probably the first step, and I'm not this because of the news, right? It was taken out to Poland, most of the people. So I bet that was very crowded, a lot of people. How was that, crossing the border to Poland, and what happened there?
So a couple of steps back. So we are at work, we're still working. Because we are in outsource, we have international clients. Everyone is concerned, how we're going to work. in terms of continuity, in terms of whether we're going to have electricity or internet, or it's going to be cut off or blocked or whatever.
Right.
There's some regions that are closer to Russia that definitely they are in lots of trouble. They'll be the first to go if something escalates. So they start organizing transportation to move either to safer regions in the west of Ukraine, or to move to Poland and then either stay there or just go anywhere else, because basically at the time all EU countries waived visa rights and they would let you stay indefinitely until the conflict wears off or whatever. So they do have this plan, and the situation is uncertain because no one tells you, by definition, you have to go. You have to, take your bag and leave. Otherwise, we'll fire you, anything like that.
Right.
And at the end of the day, it's not clear whether you should, or maybe it's gonna get better. And it's a little bit of, I'm a structured person. I like structure and rules. And if I'm gonna be fired, just tell me you don't leave by 1st of March, I'll be fired, and then I'll make my
Right.
decision. But here in this kind of uncertainty, it was very difficult to make any kind of decision. And end of the day, so it's like first days of March, maybe it's 4th or 5th, and it's only getting worse. My parents are pressuring me because they live in an up north. It's closer to Russia, so of course for them it's much worse already at that moment, and they were very concerned. So they were pressuring me to leave and to just leave anywhere. Doesn't matter if it's the west of Ukraine, if it's abroad or anywhere else, just as long as it's not in Kyiv, because where I live currently, the same place, same flat that I used to live back then, we were just a couple of miles from where it all started. Everything you saw on the news about what was happening in the outskirts of Kyiv, it's quite close to where I live. So naturally, we would be the first one to fall. And so,
Right.
end of the day, I decided, okay, maybe I take a bus and I move. But then I have to have a plan lined up, because I know some people that have this sort of an attitude. Somehow it will be fine. I'll find something. It will work out.
Right.
Someone is going to help me.
Right.
I'm not like that. I have to have a plan. I understand where I'm going to go, like where I'm going to live, and all that sort of thing.
Right.
So it was quite a long decision for me. It was not quick because we had the transportation to Lviv. We can stay for some time there because the company is renting some place for us to stay. It's fine. But then what do I do then? So I started to ask my friends whether someone would, take me in for a couple of weeks. I did find an option in France. And still at this moment, I'm not sure whether I'm going or I'm not going. I'm just unable to make a decision because it's just too big. Finally, I decided, okay, I go. We have a Google form to apply for transportation from Kyiv. I do that. So I need to pack. And I'm like, okay. So at that moment, I'm working for a BPR company. Mostly I work from home, so we don't have any dress code or anything like that. But prior to
Right.
that, I was working in a more strict environment. So I opened my wardrobe and it's all like suits and high heels. And I'm like, how do I pack to be a refugee? I don't have any comfortable clothes.
Right.
It's so
Right.
cute. It's very, very surreal. I was texting some of my friends with that and just telling them, I don't know what to pack. I don't have any clothes that people are supposed to have for this kind of situation.
Right. Right.
But at the end, I did. And again, I packed a small bag because I was going for a couple of weeks and then I was coming back.
Right. So Mary, just so you're still in Ukraine, right? And
Mhm.
this is within the first 4 days. This is
Just
we
a
already
little-
passed the 4 days.
I think we've passed the 4 days. It's more like March the 4th, the 5th, around that time when I was basically I made the decision finally to leave and to stay elsewhere.
Right. Look, everything you're going through, I would assume that it's pretty normal. Like, who's prepared for something like this and then don't know where to go, having a plan when everybody's going through the same thing. Everything is crowded. People all over the place. Everybody's panicking. So I know you put a smile the way you tell the story and good energy. But at the same time, I can imagine to be in that situation where you don't know what's going to happen. and you had to make a decision. And you try to find people that can take you in or what to take. So take enough. And before we continue with the rest of the story, I know you talk about your parents. Are your parents okay? And are your parents still? Did they leave that area because they were closer to Russia, or they stay?
They're fine. They are still in the same place, in the same town. Technically, it's not on the border. It's up north, but it's closer to Kyiv than it is to the border. But because of the logistics, if they were to break the border from north, they would, come directly to Kyiv through that town and through that area, which in the end, it almost happened. Part of that area was sort of cut off and was occupied. They were okay in the end, but still it was a tough situation. I think for nearly 2 months, they were cut off from the rest of the world. They didn't have any food or medicine coming in. So it was quite tough. And I'm sort of pissed at them a little bit because at the moment I was already abroad and they weren't letting all the details. They didn't tell me all the details of what was going on. And naturally, it wasn't in the news, so I was not aware. So, yeah, but,
They were just trying to
typical
keep you.
parents.
Yeah, they didn't want you to worry about,
Yeah.
which it makes sense, right? But just think of, so you didn't leave, you're getting ready. Your parents, I mean, the stress of having your parents over there, which is also at another level of stress, right? So all these thoughts in your head right now, and I just try to say that because I think people, when you tell a story, yes, you're hearing a story, but living it is different. And I know you were saying early, I don't know if my story is big of a deal. I think just that, your parents being close to Russia, you don't know when to leave, what's going to happen, where you were going to go, and what you pack, not having a plan. That's a stressful situation. That's a very stressful situation. So, all right, so let's continue with the story.
Right, so I'm getting ready finally. I packed something. I packed a light bag because you take small things for a couple of weeks. I found an
Right.
option to stay with a friend in France. I applied for transportation to leave. Then I decided I would find a way, either would cross the border somehow by bus or by anything. I'll think of that tomorrow, that kind of situation. Midway to leave, I get a call from my friend who says, many reasons, like it's not going to work out. You can stay with me. So, whatever, just find something else. And I'm like, okay, it's the middle of the night. Maybe 10 hours later, I'm going to be in Poland. So where do I live?
Where are you going, right?
Yeah, and it was just a little bit like a nail in a coffin kind of thing. I started calling other people. Finally, I found another option with a friend. And again, I felt terrible about it initially because I'm not the kind of person who imposes, on other people when I have some kind of a problem, or I hate to ask that sort of thing, to
Right.
just appear at your door and say, hi, I'm going to stay with you for a while.
Right. Well, also it's important for people to know that when you're in that situation, which is a desperate situation, you're vulnerable. You're vulnerable to anybody. Anything can happen. You go into a place, you don't know where you're going. People will take you in, but now you're in a spot where people can completely take advantage of you, right? Especially a female. So this is it's a tough situation. It's not a minor detail of the story, by the way.
And, for me, the reason why I was seeking for accommodation with a friend, with someone I know, because I was still employed. I had a job. I was still doing my job, aside from a couple of days while I was traveling. And so for me, it was very important to have a stable place where I can stay, when I can work, when I have like internet, and I can have calls with
Right.
camera on and stuff like that. That was part of the decision why staying at a refugee place was not an option, because I wasn't going to
Right.
be able to work. I was concerned about getting robbed because I did have like a laptop. I did have some cash with me. So it just was all
Right.
way too stressful. So yeah, it was a kind of an interesting situation. And then across the border to Poland, I think I haven't properly slept for more than 48 hours at that point. And
Wow.
somehow I was still functioning, which was very interesting for me, because usually lack of sleep doesn't do anything good to me. I'm rubbish when I don't get enough sleep. But think it was a different story when, I don't know, your body was sort of in a crisis mode, and it allowed you to
Right.
stay up and didn't care about the things. So across the border in Poland, we were in a small town. They gave us like a free ticket to use the railways. Where did I go? Okay, I went to Krakow because that's where my colleague stayed, and that's where I worked. Sort of had like an accommodation lined up for us, like a small hotel kind of thing where we could stay for a couple of nights. So I went there, and I booked. While I was getting there, I booked a flight to Paris, and then couple of days I was on a flight to Paris. And this was an interesting point about booking a flight was, again, I'm now telling this as a linear story, but you have to understand that this is all very hectic. It's like last minute. I arrive, when I'm on a bus to Poland, I don't know where I will end up. I only know that I will arrive to Poland. I don't know where. And I never traveled by bus. I mean, I never crossed the border by bus before, so I don't even know how it works. what's going on, or what's the town that's closest to Ukraine from this? Like, I have no idea. So at the end, I arrive there. It's a small town. I'm studying. They have a sort of like a coordinator center for people who arrive, and they try to help you. I sort of ask, like, where do I go? I need to get to Paris. Like, give me some itinerary, what to do.
Right.
So they got me on the train, and I got to Krakow. But still, it's all very, very difficult because, first of all, you haven't slept for days. It's all very. Prior to that, I've been to Poland once, and I don't know anything. I don't know the language. I get to the railway station. I don't know how they work. It's the logic, how they operate. Where do I find my train and the direction, all that sort of thing. If you travel a lot, you know that in many countries, the logic is very different when it comes to public transport. Sometimes it's not obvious. It sort of breaks your usual way of thinking. And when you're that sleep deprived and stressed, it's sort of an additional layer, and it's too much. And while I'm on the train, so my cell phone internet is supposed to work abroad. They do have it. I think they even have waived some tariffs for roaming or whatnot. Anyhow, it's not working. So it's very patchy. Sometimes I get a message and then it doesn't work.
Right.
And they're like, okay, I don't have internet. I cannot call anyone. What do I do? I'm trying to with a friend, with a colleague who's already in that accommodation in Poland, because I need to know, where do I go? Like, where does she pick me up and things like that. At the same time, I know I need to book a ticket, and the earlier I book it, the cheaper it's going to be, basically, because if I'm doing it within one day, it's going to be very expensive, and I don't want that, because I need to understand that God knows how long I'm going to stay. I need to buy some stuff. Maybe I'll need to stay in a hotel or something. Maybe I'll need some other tickets. So I'll need to have some money. And for many people, maybe it's not obvious. And maybe that is something that comes to your mind. But it's the first day when it all started, the National Bank of Ukraine issued, I don't know if it's called a directive or anything, that allow the banks to close all your credit lines. So if you used to have a credit card, it's now empty and it's now not accessible. That's an additional positive moment. If you are relying on that, it's all going to be available to you.
So everything bad that can happen at that moment was happening, right?
Yeah,
Especially when you have no money. If you've been saving money for a long time, or you have a credit card, there was a possible financial help at that moment. Now you don't have it anymore. That's a big deal. That happened. I'm from Argentina, so in Argentina we have that. It wasn't because of war; it was because some political issues. But people that were saving all their life, the bank just put a hold on those savings, and you were not able to access it. Some people commit suicide because of it. Like, I have all my savings there, and it's gone. So that's a very stressful situation, for sure.
Yeah, so imagine we don't have credit cards. Then if you have a savings account or a current account, the money is still accessible, but they applied some limits. And up to this day, we still have some limitations. You cannot just use all your money however you wish. There's a limitation, again, up to this day on buying currency, and also on how much you can spend abroad. in a different currency. And back in the day, it was much more strict than today. So you couldn't exchange, basically you couldn't buy dollars or euros. If you wanted to
Right.
secure your savings, if you have something in a local currency, naturally you would assume, inflation is going to happen. So if I have, I don't know, 100,000, the purchase capability of that is going to turn to 10,000 in a couple of weeks. So you
Right.
want to buy some more stable currency, but you weren't able to. They also limited the possibility of SWIFT transfers to foreign cards. So imagine if you arrive somewhere, you want to rent, you want to pay them, you cannot do a money transfer. And that was very, very stressful because even if you're in a situation, you would imagine, I have some money, I'm good. You're not able to spend
Right.
it. So
Well, for people that travel, and if you haven't traveled anywhere, I mean, other people, I mean, I travel quite a bit. I enjoy traveling, seeing other cultures. If you ever go to a new country and your credit card doesn't work, especially when you arrive into a new hotel, new place, it's a very stressful situation. That alone is very stressful. Imagine you're leaving because of the war, everything, all the stressful situation that is going on at that moment, and you cannot have enough money or put enough money. That's and being in a country that is not yours, what you do, where you go, who you gonna ask for money, right? I understand that it's tough.
yeah, but back to booking a flight ticket to Paris, I was on a train already. The connection was extremely patchy. I was not able to finalize the purchase because of that, authorization. There are a few tabs opening, and it's just the internet is too slow. It's not working. At the end, I text my friend and say, "This is my passport details. You book me a ticket. I give you my card number. Then, because there is authorization, you need to confirm in your mobile app for the purchase. I will just text you the code. I will try to get through and you'll buy me a ticket." And
Uh,
that's how we did it at the end. And just, I
uh,
think I'll need to mention this as well. That's along this road, there's many details, many people that I don't mention, but many, many people who help me in this or that way with either a little bit of advice, either helping book a ticket or, helping find a bus or how to find a train or how to do something like that. And it's only through them and with their help that I was able to make it, because in this kind of situation with so many limitations, with so many things going on, there's no way you're going to make it alone. It's not going to happen. As much as you think you are self-sufficient or resilient, because I used to think I'm good in stressful situation. I'm structured. I'm not going into panic mode. It all goes to waste in a situation like that.
right. Understandable. Understandable. I one positive thing I believe is like, did English help you talk to different people because not in another language, right? You say you don't know the Polish language or whatever other language there might be, but speaking English, was that helpful for you to communicate with other people?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say that. And it would give a huge advantage, especially if you would travel outside of Poland again. Because something, again, maybe not obvious for everyone in Poland, Ukrainian and Polish language are still quite close. There's still things you can catch and you can somehow understand each other. But then if you go elsewhere, if you go to, I don't know, France or Germany or anywhere else, it's not going to count there. So, yeah.
Right, right, right. I would imagine that Polish and Ukraine would be something kind of like Italian and Spanish or Spanish and Portuguese.
Yeah, maybe in that direction. Yeah.
We don't speak the same thing, but you can understand it somehow. Like even some words are spelled differently, but you know what it means because you speak, like I speak Spanish, so I know. I think I can talk to an Italian person or a Portuguese person. I will be able to understand them, not have a fluent communication, but we can talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what needs to be mentioned for sure is that how well prepared and how quickly to react Poland was in general as a country. I think among the whole EU, they were the most prepared because they were the closest. And then even just to give you an example, back then was still during coronavirus time, so you remember that. So we still had to wear a mask.
Right.
So
Right.
when you had to travel, you would need to present, at least when you were traveling from Ukraine, you would need to present a certificate that you've been either vaccinated or you had a recent test or whatever. They waived it like the first day. They waived it completely for everyone. But then another example, I was traveling to France. No one would ask me for a corona certificate. I did have it, but no one would ask because they waived it for all Ukrainians. But when you go into France, then everyone they would need a corona certificate. If you would go to a different country, then they would be the same. If you want to board a train or a flight to a different country from Poland, which requires corona certificate, you are supposed to present it, even though technically you are in a situation when you didn't have time to prepare and to go, and take a test
Right.
and print it out.
Right. So wow. So anyways, you made it to France. You left Poland and made it to France for how long, Mary?
So just a couple of weeks. And again, I was actually trying to find another solution, either to stay in France or to find something in Poland to coordinate with my colleagues, to rent or do anything. And back in my mind, I was still like, maybe it's going to end. Maybe I don't have to do all this because it's all
Right.
resolved and I'll just, buy a ticket back home and off you go. But yeah, it was not a very good situation because when people here, you're in France, it's a fine, Eiffel Tower, Croissants. I've been to France several times before that. I love the country immensely, hoping to visit this summer as well. But that's beside the point because I'm living with my friends. I'm imposing myself because I was very last minute. I was on the way to Poland en route, middle of the night. I call and I ask, can I stay with you because I don't have a place to stay? I don't
Right.
know where to go. So it's all a bit uncomfortable. And yeah, at the same time, I'm trying to find some options. After I think 2 weeks or so, I decide to go back to Poland to a hotel that a company rents out for us. And I talked to my colleague and we decide to start searching for a flat in Poland and to stay for how long? A couple of months. Again, we are operating from a couple of weeks to a couple of months now, but it's all gradual. And no one is talking about permanent or a year or anything like that. So again, searching for a flat is very stressful, and we did have a lot of help, namely from one of our colleagues actually. And without her help and her being a local, I don't think we would be able to secure something good, to be honest, because what was happening at the day, the renting prices skyrocketed. I think
Of course, right?
X2,
People wanted to make money
X3,
in a
yeah,
very difficult
absolutely.
time, right?
Because back in the day, I sort of I did have an understanding of the renting prices in Poland, and it was not that different from Ukraine. But then it was closer to Switzerland than what it used to
Wow.
be.
And Switzerland is very expensive. I was there last year with Julie. We went to Switzerland for the first time. Beautiful place.
Yeah, absolutely, but very expensive. And so, again, what you have to understand about Poland is that it's not a very multicultural country. They don't have that much immigration, for instance, as France or Germany or Belgium. And so maybe they're a little bit unprepared. The systems are a little bit unprepared to handle foreigners. And what I mean is when you rent is, again, I cannot account for what is going today because I have no knowledge of that. But back in the day, in the first month, it was very difficult to find a flat because no one wants foreigners. They write it in the ad,
Right.
no foreigners.
Right.
No one would pick up if you speak English. It's like, no, thank you. But
Wow. Wow. Well, I think now with so many years into the war now, maybe prices kind of flat a little bit because that was you think this is
that's
still
still high.
expensive
That's
right
still
now?
high. Yes,
Wow.
absolutely.
And for how long you were in Poland? What was
Um,
the total time that you were out
the
of
total
Ukraine?
time I was out was a year. So I left on March 7th and I arrived back on March 31 the next year. So, yeah.
Right. So a lot of people that migrate is by choice, right? And obviously you still had a choice at the time, but the choice was like either stay, maybe something happened to me, or I'll leave and survive. So everybody always have a choice, but I think you were kind of forced to migrate. It's some form of migration because you're leaving to your place, to another country. It could be called refugee or a migrant. It doesn't matter. A lot of Ukrainians did not come back. They left. I have friends in Spain that where he lives is Argentina, and he lives in Spain. It is full of Ukrainians in that building. A lot of Ukrainians went to Argentina. A lot of them come to the U.S. A lot of them didn't come back, but you come back to Ukraine. Why you didn't stay out of Ukraine? Why did you come back?
I think that's basically what I said in the beginning. It was always a couple of weeks, a couple of months, a few more. What sort of made me different from many people who decided to leave home is that I had a stable job and I still had a job in Ukraine. Basically, I was working remotely, and it gave me a sense of a security, financial, of course, as well. And
Right.
it was something that didn't motivate me to go outside and sort of learn the language or find a job or find some friends or anything like that and to integrate into a new country, because I was basically a tourist. I'm here for just a couple of months and I'm going to leave. And
Right.
then that what
Right.
made it very, very different. Yeah, but still, I don't regret that I left and that I spent a year, because I think what was going on back then, especially that first year in Ukraine, was extremely tough. And some people in my team were still in Ukraine and they were experiencing all this awful blackouts for 10, 14, 20 hours a day, constant bombings. There were so many casualties, and it was completely messed up. And being abroad gave me a sense of security. It let me focus on my job and focus on myself.
Right.
Because we were in a small town, we didn't speak the language, we didn't have any friends, we couldn't do
Right.
anything. There wasn't much there. I think I focused on the work a lot. I did some learning again for my work. I started going to the gym because there was nothing to do again. It was the only sort
Right.
of entertainment. But in the end of the day, I think for my mental health, I was happy that I was in that place, because I don't think I don't say I don't I think I would survive the year. Of course, I would survive the year here, but I would be very different. I think it would hit me very much to be in that constant discomfort and constant fear, and yeah. But
Right. Is the place where you live, Mary, was that affected by the war at all? Was there any infrastructure damage or anything like that?
so where I live exactly, I think so when I left, I was still in France. I was watching the TV, and on the news they showed. I live in a Stalin era building. It's 5 stories. It's not very high, and they showed, and it's a corner flat on the top one. So I'm in a
Hmm.
very favorable position here. And I think they showed a building just like that. It's not exactly this street, but it's this area. I recognized it from the video, because back in the day they wouldn't tell you the exact location. You know, when it happened,
Right.
and it was at the exact corner flat that was hit. And back then I was like, okay, maybe I was making the right decision to move, because I don't want it to happen to me.
Right. Well, anyway, I think I love your story, Mary. I think it takes courage to do what you did. You know, being a female and going out and expose yourself to other people that you don't know, some people you knew. And what is important about the story is that a lot of people were good and were willing to help, and that's something to notice, because when you go, a lot of people don't leave their country to see other countries or other cultures because they're afraid. There's a lot of good people in the world, and as much as you can find bad ones, there's much more good people than bad people. And I think you find those people in your story that help you. I know you couldn't name all of them, but I think in life you have to take a chance and an opportunity, whatever the reason is, and you did, and you did it for your mental health, which will help you being able to keep your job during all this stressful situation. I applaud you for that, because imagine, people like, oh, sometime in the United States, I say, my C is not working, and it's the panic, right? And you being able to survive this situation, keep your job, being able to manage, have money through this whole time. The adversity was incredible. Finding people in France or finding people in Poland, and you did it. So quite a story. I think it's people will love your story, and people will learn from situations like this, right? Immigrants go through a lot of different situations. Obviously, nobody pushed you to go through anything like that. Like I said, you were never a full migrant because you left, come back a year later, and you come back to your country, to your roots, where you're more comfortable, the people that you know, the people that you love. Usually a migrant doesn't return or return many years later. I've been here in the U.S. for over 30 years, right? But thank you for telling me your story. I don't know if you have anything else that you want to add to the story. You're more welcome to do so, but it's a beautiful story. It's intense, right? I'm also impressed. You're telling it with a smile. Sometimes you giggle, and today you can do that because you already went through that, right? Is there anything else you have that you want to add about the story? Anything that you think you miss about the story?
I don't think I missed anyone, but something that I would like to get out there. Again, very grateful to all the people that were in my way and that I met in my way and that helped me a lot. And a lesson learned for me was I always think of myself again as self-sufficient, that I can do anything, I can cope with any stress, but sometimes I experience this kind of a difficulty to ask someone for help. And I always feel like maybe that's not appropriate and maybe they will tell no or something like that. And this definitely taught me to be a little bit more out there and not be afraid. Because if you are in that situation where you don't have where to sleep, it sort of pushes
Right.
you to. But yeah, it's been, I think, a very interesting journey. Regardless, it taught me a lot. I think it changed me a lot. And at the end of the day, I'm glad it worked out the way it did. And I hope it made me a little bit better as a person in the end.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You learn a lot from that. I learned a lot from your story. I'm sure you did too. If there's any message you want to give to someone that's going through a hard time right now, whatever the situation that they're going through, is there any message you want to tell them?
Well, that's an interesting one. We recently had a sort of an event at the bank as part of the ESG initiative for women empowerment. And we talked about mental health. And many people were like, I can cope with any stress. Like, I can do anything. I'm tough. And then we're like, yes, sometimes you deal with a situation, but then you reflect on it and you see that you are not okay. That even though the situation is resolved and everything is fine, your work is fine, everything is done. And to an outsider, it seems like you're all put together, but still you aren't. And it's important to sometimes take a step back and slow down and sometimes ask for help when you need it, and not to be afraid that someone will think that you're weak or, you're imposing yourself or
Right.
anything like that.
That's a great message. Well, Mary, thank you again for being on my podcast. I really
Thank
thank
you.
you for taking your time, your free time. Like I say, we never met. I only know you. I knew about you from my wife, but she always tell me this great story and how much you guys used to laugh. That you got a good sense of humor. That's what I heard too from her. She always got good jokes and stuff like that. Thank you, Mary. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.